Hello, chess fans. Welcome to another episode of Chess Chat, a program brought to you live from the Rollstone and Bank Trust studio at Fitchburg Access Television. I am George Merijanian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club, the second oldest chess club in Massachusetts, meets every Wednesday evening from 6:30 to 10:30 in rooms 144 and 145 in the McKay complex at the university. And with me for this 192nd episode of Chess Chat is our award-winning director, Darren Dame of Fitchburg, recipient of FATV's prestigious Boulder Award in 2009, and now in his 18th consecutive year as director of Chess Chat, a record at Fitchburg Access Television. And assisting Darren in the control room and also on camera is fellow resident and longtime Wachusett Chess Club member Brian Bigelow, who prepares the set for us every time and does the lighting. He's an all-around very key member of our Chess Chat crew. And sitting across from me, however, is a very important member of Chess Chat, my trusty colleague, longtime associate, a very active chess tournament player, a chess author, a chess photographer, and an all-around good guy, my co-host, Dave Kuchar of Westminster. Hello, Dave.
Hello, George.
Always a pleasure seeing you, Dave.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Well, before
My question is, has Brian been here for 18 years too? Or?
No, unfortunately, Brian has not been here that long, but he's hoping to break the record of you and me and stick around longer than both of us. But before we get into today's program, you're, as a very active tournament player, you're involved in organizing tournaments at your house. You spent earlier today playing chess, among other fellow chess players at your house.
Yep.
And this event, how long have you been doing this now? You've been doing now these little round robin tournaments, for a number of years now, a few years.
Probably goes back a couple of years.
Mike
right. David started it.
Michael David, yeah.
So I don't think I played in the first one, but
okay. But what do you call this? What do you call these little tournaments you hold?
I think it's Mike David's name, the Leisure Kings.
Oh, the Leisure Kings. Okay.
So we're all retired.
You're all retired, so you have time to do this.
That's right.
Okay. Well, getting back to business, real business.
Back to business. Yeah.
Back to business as well, Dave. It was 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago today, that we had the Massachusetts Open ended at the Westford Regency Inn and Conference Center in Westford,
yep.
And we have a new state champion. And this new state champion is actually an old state champion.
Yes.
Because he is
the oldest ever.
Well, yeah, the oldest one ever to win the state championship.
Yep.
That's Grandmaster Alexander Ivanov,
right?
Who was actually born in Russia. He was born in a place called Novoshavka, which is in southwestern Siberia. Yeah.
Really?
And he just turned 68 years old last month. Yep. And this was his 15th. Here is a photo. Darren has a photo of Grandmaster Ivanov at the board. Yeah. Grandmaster Ivanov actually won for the 15th time this Masters Open. The first time he won it was in 1988. The year he came to the United States, when he immigrated to this country with his wife. His wife is a very well-known player. She's a woman international master, Esther Epstein.
Oh, I didn't know that. Who's
a former, also a U.S. women's champion. But they both came to this country in 1988, and that was the year that actually Ivanov tied for first place in the 1988 Massachusetts Open State Championship with 16-year-old Ilya Gurevich, who grew up in Worcester. Yep. Who was also an immigrant, who was born in Ukraine, was born in Kiev, Ukraine, also came at a young age to this country. But both Ivanov and Ilya Gurevich actually tied for first place and were co-champions in 1988. Now, what's interesting about this Mass Open that Ivanov won just 2 weeks ago, there was actually a gap of how many years? The last time he won it was in 2015. So he had won it 9 years ago.
Wow.
So there was a 9-year gap before he repeated as winner. And there was a gap way back. When he won it in 1988 for the first time, he won it the following year, 1989, and then he won it in 1990. So he won it 3 years straight.
Yep.
But then he did not win it again until 12 years later, until 2002, when he won his 4th Mass Open. So that was quite a gap, 12-year gap. And then again, he just had a 9-year gap, but now he's back as state champion. And by the way, you know who holds the record for the most number of Massachusetts Open wins?
I do.
Who is that person that we've done a program several times on?
John Curto.
John Curto, the legendary John Curto, has won this state championship 17 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But you said he claims 18, right?
John, several years before he died actually in 2022. We did a program on his death. He told me several years before he died, he said, George, I've won the Masters Open 18 times, but he's only credited by the Massachusetts Chess Association with 17 wins. So officially, he has 17 state championship wins. Yeah.
So two more, and Ivanov would tie.
He could actually tie. He could tie with 2 more. He could break the record with 3 more.
Yep.
But it's going to be hard because he's now 68 years old, and that becomes very difficult. Yeah.
But he did it this year, so.
Not this year. Now, we actually had quite a number of Wachusett Chess Club members who played in this year's state championship. Darren actually has photos that you provided. You took photos at the club.
Yep.
And let us show actually 3 of the 11 Wachusett Chess Club members who played at the club. I think the first photo we're going to show is of Bob Cecino.
Yep.
There's Bob Cecino, who lives in Shrewsbury. Now, he started coming to the club. He actually came to the club, actually, I think it was last year during the summer, or maybe 2 years ago.
Right.
But he was a regular player at the Greater Worcester Chess Club for years and years. But that club closed.
Yeah.
Actually closed shop. And he and a couple other Greater Worcester area chess club players started coming out to our club.
Yep.
So Bob Cecino played in this year's Mass Open. He played in the championship section along with Ivanov and others. Now, there are 2 other players that you took photos of, and that is Renee Manalgarol, who lives in Nashua, New Hampshire, and she's a musician. She's a very, very accomplished musician, and she played actually in this year's Mass Open in Westford. And her friend, actually, Darren has a photo of her friend who joined the club recently, and that's Leah Taylor Brown, who lives in Billerica, and she's now a new member of the club. But those 3 played at the Mass Open. But I have the names of the other club players who played in the tournament. None other than Sean Shu, who has actually stopped playing. Evidently, he's taking a little break from the club. But Sean Shu, who played also in the championship section. Frank Cow played. He's another strong player, strong Class A player. And, of course, our newly elected Masters Chess Association president, Rob King. He also played in this year's Mass Open, along with 2 young twins. I believe they're twins, Emma and Ella Zhang. Yeah, they played also. We also had Duy Tuong Nguyen, whose father's Vietnamese, but the Duy actually also played. Mariano Rivera, who lives in Leominster, played. And we also have Paul LeBlanc, who's a very new player to the club, who lives in West Boylston, who also played at the Greater Worcester Chess Club. And he now played in the Mass Open. All right, so let's talk a little about Ivanov. I asked you what was Alexander Ivanov's ranking in the state. We actually have 5 active grandmasters in the state of Massachusetts. Ivanov is one of them. In fact, he's one of the most active among the grandmasters. His current ranking among the grandmasters in the state is 5th. There is a photo, another photo of Ivanov at the board playing. I think he's playing in International Master David Vigorito. Yes,
I think
the
you're
player
right,
on the right looks like International Master David Vigorito. It is, yes. But Ivanov actually is again currently ranked. His current rating is over. He's over low 2,500s. Yeah. But who is the highest rated Grandmaster in the state of Massachusetts?
I think it's Sam Sevian.
Sam Sevian. Sam Sevian is a class by himself. He's over. He's actually closing. He's actually close to 2,800. He's 2775. He's the #1 highest rated Grandmaster in Massachusetts, and he lives in Worcester County, in our county.
Yep.
He lives in Holden. So, but he doesn't play. Sam is one who doesn't play in any of the tournaments in the state. Yeah, he likes to play in national events like in St. Louis or in international events.
Yep.
So that's where he keeps active. And of course, other grandmasters we have in the state, we have Grandmaster Han Chao Shao, who's a very active player, who lives in the greater Boston area. And you told me about this German player, actually Russian-born, but moved to Germany, Leonid Kritz, Grandmaster Leonid Kritz, who's now ranked 3rd in the state among the grandmasters. And of course, we have a Grandmaster, Eugene Perlstein, who lives in Swampscott, I believe. Swampscott, he's now number 4th in the state among the grandmasters. And that rounds out the grandmasters. 5 active grandmasters in the state. Ivanov is currently ranked. And one thing about Grandmaster Ivanov, in 1995, Alexander Ivanov tied for 1st place in the 1995 U.S. Championship. He tied actually with Grandmaster Nick DeFermian and Grandmaster Patrick Wolf, who's no stranger to players in the Fitchburg-Leominster area, because Patrick Wolf played in many tournaments in Fitchburg and Leominster back years ago.
Yeah, he was from Springfield, right?
Well, actually, his parents were taught at UMass Amherst. So he lived I think they lived in Amherst, Northampton. Yeah, no. He might have he played actually in the Springfield Chess Club, but actually he grew up actually in Northampton.
Okay.
And then moved to Belmont. The family eventually moved to Belmont. But Patrick Wolf, who was co-champion with Ivanov and Nick DeFermian, they did that in 1995. Yeah, so that's what happened then. Okay. Now, what else can we say about any of these players here? Well, I think, do we want to get into our game?
Brian is, I think Brian's probably pointing out the
yes,
picture,
I'm glad that Darren is showing this photo. Who is, okay, here's the Alexander Ivanov on the left. Whom is he playing on the right here? You know this?
That would be Carissa Yip.
Carissa Yip. He is playing now Carissa Yip, who was our Washington Chess Club champion in 2014. You know what age she won the club championship at?
I think she was 10, right?
10. You're right. Yeah. Right on, Mark. She was 10 years old, and she won the club championship with a perfect score. By the way, she won all 7 games in the club championship. Now, I don't know where this photo was taken. It might have been taken in Leominster some years ago. Carissa beat Ivanov in the New England Open.
That's right.
At the 4 Points Hotel in Leominster. Yes, you remember that tournament?
And she became the youngest female to ever beat a Grandmaster.
Yes, she became the youngest female ever to beat a Grandmaster. She did that in Leominster at the 4 Points Hotel. And then, again, Carissa is now a 2-time U.S. Women's Champion. She won it last year.
Right, so she's the current champion.
She's a current champion, and we expect her to play in this year's U.S. Women's Championship in St. Louis at the St. Louis Chess Club. Yeah. So, yes, that's a great photo of Carissa against Alexander Ivanov. By the way, what's very interesting about, I was going to say something more about Ivanov, but again, there's quite a few stories about Alexander that could be told. But if we have nothing more to say about Ivanov, we can actually get into our game that we've selected for our Chess Chat viewers. This is a game that Ivanov actually played against another Massachusetts player. He wasn't a Massachusetts resident when he played him, but he's Grandmaster Larry Christensen. Now, Larry Christensen has been living now in Massachusetts for a number of years. He's married to a very active player, Natasha Christensen, who's a member of the Boston Chess Club in Boston. They're a longtime member of that club. And they played, Ivanov and Christensen faced each other in 1989. That is 1 year after Ivanov came to this country. He went and played in the Chicago Open, and Ivanov faced Larry Christensen. Now, he probably knew of Larry Christensen because Larry Christensen was a very strong player, very active and strong player back then. But they faced each other in that tournament, and that's the game we're going to present to our chess chat viewers. Now, who had white in this game that we're going to present?
So Ivanov.
Okay, Ivanov had white. So how did he begin the game against Larry Christensen from the 1989 Chicago Open?
He opens with e4.
Okay, so that was his first move, and what Christensen responded with was a G6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now what is this? Have we played this before? Does this have a name already, or do we have to wait to see what black does?
We have to wait, right? Because it could be the modern, it could be the Pierce.
Yes, it could. Yeah, depending on what happens next. So how did Ivanov continue? Move to what did he do?
So he plays d4. Basically, any time black allows you to put both pawns in the center, you're going to do it.
Right. Okay.
You basically can't go wrong by doing that.
All right. So Christensen followed up with bishop to g7. Now, what is this called? When you put a bishop like here along this long diagonal, does this have a name? Is there a chess name for this? What do they call that?
They call it fianchettoing, but
it's a fianchetto.
But lots of people say fianchetto.
Yeah, a lot of players we know say fianchetto, but it's an Italian chess term, which is fianchetto. Fianchetto, and that's what black is doing. He's fianchettoing the dark square bishop. Okay. It's now Ivanov's third move. How does he continue?
This is very common. Plays knight to c3, developing the knight.
Okay, good to get a piece out, develop a piece. Okay, Christensen now responds, moving the pawn from d7 to d6.
Yep.
So now he's opened up now this diagonal for the light squared bishop. All right, it is now Ivanov's fourth move. How can he continue? What are there moves he could?
Lots of moves, right? I mean, a very common one is to play f4, and that's what's
called the Austrian attack.
Right, the Austrian attack.
The Austrian attack. Yeah. Could you develop the knight to f3?
Could develop the knight to f3.
That's a possibility.
You could develop the bishop. This bishop.
Yeah. So there are choices here for white.
By playing bishop to e3, he's leaving it open as to whether he's going to push this pawn or not, whether he's going to put the knight out.
Okay.
He's not committing yet.
So that's what he did. He played bishop e3.
Bishop to e3.
Okay. So now here is where Christensen plays the pawn to c6. Now there's something ironic about this.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. Yep.
Now this is 1989. Now
pre-internet.
You're right. This move, c6, now we are actually into, I think we are into, well, I think, can we call this a modern defense now, or we have to wait?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because if the knight goes to f6, then it's called a Pierce, right?
Yes, if the knight were to go to knight f6, yes, then it would transpose to a Pierce defense.
Yep.
But what's interesting about this is this play by black, what Christensen is adopting, is exactly what Ivanov is part of his repertoire.
Right.
When he has black, he plays this.
Right.
And I don't know whether Larry Christensen was aware or that Ivanov knew that he was playing something that he himself would adopt years later and be part of his repertoire.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, this is again.
But we speculated that he was new to the country.
New to the country.
Christensen probably had no idea what he played.
Yeah, exactly. He probably had no knowledge of what the Christensen played as black against E4.
No, I'm saying Christensen probably didn't know what Ivanov.
Yes. Oh yeah, Christensen certainly probably did not know what Ivanov played again. Yeah,
right.
so he adopted this formation.
Right. So he's playing something that Ivanov was a specialist at, basically.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So it is now Christensen's fifth move. How did he continue? Or let's put it this way. What can he do here? What are the playable moves here for White?
Again, the same sort of thing. He still could play F4.
Still yeah, that's playable.
Still could play the knight out here.
Right.
He could develop this bishop
Right.
here or here.
Yep, right.
Lots of choices.
Yep.
But he played a very rare move. But again, keep in mind he's a specialist at the black side of this.
Right.
He plays H3.
All right. Now, that's rather strange. Well, maybe it's not strange because what does that hint? What does that hint at? I mean, what does that actually indicate?
He's hinting that he's probably going to just start attacking on the king side by
yeah, but he wants to use
that.
the pawn on H3 as a support to advance
Right.
the pawn to G4. Okay. Yeah. So after H3, now Christensen develops his knight to F6.
Yeah.
All right. So out it comes. Okay. Both players have developed two minor pieces. Mm-hmm. It is now Ivanov's sixth move. How does he continue? Does he carry out his plan?
Very aggressively, yep. G4.
All right, so G4 is played. All right. All right, here is where Christensen now plays the queen on D8 to A5. Does black now have a threat? What is black's threat here after queen A5?
Well, I guess the threat would be to take here.
Yes.
Because this knight can't take back since it's pinned.
Right, so that is the threat.
And this is a very common idea in the modern or the Pierts is, after you've played C6 is to bring the queen out here.
And pin the knight.
Pin the knight. It also supports any pawn moves along here.
That's true, right, yeah. All right, so now White's move, doesn't White actually have to protect that pawn on E4?
Yeah.
And there are actually two ways to do it, or actually three ways, but I mean, you could actually bring the queen up.
You could bring the queen up to here.
That's one way.
Yeah.
You could bring that bishop to D.
here.
Yep. Okay. But what does Ivanov choose?
He decides to fianchetto it to G2.
Okay. So the bishop's defending the pawn on E4 with bishop G2, and here is where Christensen now plays the pawn that he played the D6.
Yeah.
He plays the D5. So it took him two moves to develop, put the pawn on D5. All right. So now he's attacking the pawn again. That pawn on E4 is now attacked actually now twice.
Yeah.
With the pawn on
It's only
D5.
defended once.
Yeah, it's only got right because of the pin. Right. Even though the knight actually is defending it, however the knight is pinned.
Right.
So now there's a threat actually of taking that. Black is now threatening to take that pawn on E4.
Yep.
So how does Ivanov respond to this threat?
Yeah, well, he's got choices here, right? I mean, for one, he could just capture.
That's one way.
Right.
Right.
Those are the main things. He could capture, or he could. It's a common idea. You just push past.
And that's what he did.
And that's what he did. And he attacks the knight.
Okay. He's going to force that knight to move.
Right.
Okay. And the knight has very limited number of squares they can go to. All right. So this is now the eighth move for black. And what Christensen decides to do, he's not going to retreat it back to, he's certainly not going to retreat it back to G8.
Right.
And he chooses not to go back to the D7. He's going to go to E4, knight E4, because he can do that.
He can do it, and again, there's a threat, right? The knight can take here.
He has a new threat. Black has a new threat of taking, yes. What knight takes on C3, yes, threatening to win a pawn, for one thing.
Yep.
All right, so how does Ivanov respond to this knight E4 move? He can't allow this to be a...
right, so he plays the knight on G to E2.
Yep.
So he's now defending the knight on C3 a second time.
All right, so now we have a defense there.
And also, he could potentially castle on the king side if he wants.
Okay, all right. So it is now black's move. It's now Christensen's move. How is he going to continue? Well, he decides he's going to play the pawn to H5.
Yeah.
All right. So now, does black now have a threat by playing H5? What is he threatening to do? Is there not a double attack on this pawn?
Right.
So he's threatening to win a pawn here.
Attack here, yeah.
All right, so there's a threat of that H pawn cannot be allowed to take the pawn on G4, where the pawn on the only pawn defending it is H3. So how does Ivanov respond to this threat of black threatening to win a pawn? He decides
So
to...
first he captures the knight on e4.
Yeah, bishop takes e4, okay. Now there are two ways to take back here. We can actually take back either with the, we could take back with the pawn, d takes e4, that's one way. However, Christian decides to take, oh, he does take it with the pawn.
That's the only...
He could have actually, he could have taken...
No,
I'm sorry, there was only one way. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
there is, yeah.
I got confused.
I was waiting to see the other way.
No, right, you're right. I'm not thinking straight. He has the only move he has is d takes e4.
Yep.
Let me back on track here. Okay. So d takes e4.
And again, you know, white cannot capture that because the knight is pinned.
All right. So how does Ivanov continue then?
So since,
oh wait, we got a threat here.
Right. So the threat is still there.
That threat is still there. Yep.
So he captures the pawn.
Okay.
G takes h5.
Okay. Now here's a case where black has two choices of recapturing.
Yeah.
He can actually take with the pawn, but that doesn't look too good because actually that would open up that G file unnecessarily. He decided to play it more actively by playing rook takes h5. That is a much better move than taking with the pawn.
And again, there's a threat.
New threat.
This pawn is attacked by the rook and the bishop and only defended once.
All right, so black is trying to win a pawn here.
So this is we have to say, this is a pretty unusual position out of the opening.
Has this been played before? Has this been played?
I don't remember. I can't remember if this is.
Well, this looks actually...
But it's certainly unusual.
Very unusual position. Okay. It is now Ivanov's move. It's actually his 12th move coming up. How does... Now, wait a minute. Does he want to save that pawn by pushing it? Which he could. But he chooses not to. So what does he have instead?
So what he does is he plays the knight to g3. So now he's attacking the pawn on e4. So,
I see.
So black could win this, but on the other hand, he's going to lose the pawn on e4.
Right. Or black actually does black's move. Black chooses not to play the rook here, to bring it up here to defend that. The reason he doesn't do that because he would probably did not want to face bishop going to g5, attacking the rook and forcing down the rook to move back again.
Yep.
Nothing is gained by doing that.
Right.
So that would be a mistake to come up here and defend that pawn. Instead, what he does here, he decides to take the pawn.
Captures, yeah.
He captures. Rook takes h3, takes the pawn, and how does actually Ivanov continue? I'm sorry. Yeah. It's Ivanov's move.
Ivanov captures.
Rook takes h3.
Yep.
And of course, black's move is obvious.
Yep.
It's bishop takes h3. All right. Okay. So we take here, bishop h3, and it's now Ivanov's 14th move, and he actually is able to get his pawn back by capturing.
Knight takes e4. Yep.
Knight takes e4. Okay. All right. So now, how does black continue? It's actually his 14th move coming up. This knight has to come into play.
Yep.
Now, he only has two squares he can go to. He can go to d7, that's one way.
Yep.
But he chooses the other way, bringing the knight to a6. Okay. And
I think he's probably, thinking of coming in here and possibly here afterwards.
Yes. Oh, by redeploying it. Yes, right. Okay, that seems like a good way of doing it. So after knight a6, what did Ivanov do? It's his move now. What does he do?
This is a pretty nice move. He plays queen to f3, developing the queen and simultaneously attacking this bishop.
So he's forcing that bishop to move.
Right.
That bishop has to save itself. So the question is, where does that bishop retreat to? I see, there are a number of squares he can go to. E6, D7, or not.
You can even go
F5.
Here.
Yes, even F5.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with bishop F5.
Yep.
What does he choose among all those squares? He does play that.
Bishop F5.
So bishop F5. He does play bishop F5.
Yep.
So he plays it more actively here, attacking the knight. Okay. All right. So it is now Ivanov's 16th move. What does he do?
And so finally, this is fairly late to be castling, but he castles on the queen side. So now the pin is broken. Now this knight is free to move.
Yes. So after white castles on move
Yep.
16,
Yep.
black does the same thing.
Yep.
And this is rather unusual, especially since both players are castling very late in the game on the same move.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't see that usually.
Right.
Late casting, where both of them castling
Right.
on the queen side, especially. Okay, it is now Ivanov's 17th move. How does he continue?
So right now we should probably say this is a fairly even game, right?
Yes, the evaluation would be equality.
Pretty equal,
here.
yeah. Knight G3.
New threat. I see a new threat.
Right. So attacking this bishop twice with the queen and the knight. It's only
And
defended
threatening to
once.
win a pawn.
Yep.
If there's a capture here, the queen would actually win a pawn on f5. Okay, so black cannot allow that. Black cannot allow that capture on f5 and must save that bishop by retreating it.
Yep.
All right, and he's got only limited square. You only have 2 squares he can retreat to here,
Yep.
e6 or d7, and he chooses bishop e6. Now with this move,
Right.
does now black have a threat?
Black now
What
has
is now black's threat?
Both the bishop and the queen are attacking this pawn. It's only defended once.
So black is now threatening to win a pawn with this double attack with the bishop and the queen on a2.
Right, but we have to say this is always a questionable sort of thing, right? Because if he were to do this,
Yes.
you know, this is a very standard tactic,
Yes, right.
To just
He could-
push
yes.
and,
It could be
trap,
Yeah.
trap the piece. So I'm not sure that he really would
Right.
take it if he could.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
dangerous.
It is dangerous. Okay. So after what move are we now on?
Bishop to e6 was the 17th.
But Ivanov said no. I don't. Yeah. He doesn't want this pawn taken.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So he decides to not even allow the possibility of the bishop taking
Right.
the pawn.
So he probably calculated out.
Yeah.
Because for him to capture here is the sort of thing where you're going to calculate for and make sure it works ahead of time. And probably Ivanov realized it would work, so he played a3.
Right. Which stops the capture
Yep.
of the win and taking the pawn on a2.
Yep.
All right. So after a3, Christensen realizes, he wants to redeploy this
Activate the knight, yeah.
this knight on the side here.
Yep.
Has to come back into play here, and he decides to play knight c7. And of course, this is a good square
Yep.
to go to.
Yep.
So knight is now on c7. How does Ivanov continue on his 19th move?
So he plays knight on g to e4.
Okay, looks good. It's getting actually this knight actually more active here on e4. All right, so actually Christensen carries out his plan of playing the knight to d5.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, by the way, now does he have a threat here? Now a new threat. Now it's black's has the threat now. We have no, actually not a threat because actually this is defended.
Yeah.
So this knight here is defending. So there's no. Yeah. All right. So there's no threat of taking the knight on c3.
But we should say this is where he's starting, where Christensen's starting to
Go astray.
go astray a bit.
All right. So up to this, everything is okay.
Everything's pretty much even.
But things are going to change now because of Christensen's continuation. All right. All right. So what does Ivanov choose to do here? Evidently, I think probably he probably doesn't want this knight to be taken here, which would force this knight to take back here. Yeah. Yeah. But he chooses now to redeploy. I think he chooses to redeploy that knight on c3 to e2.
Goes to e2.
Right. So that's his plan. Evidently, he didn't want exchange. He didn't want actually black even to be allowed that exchange on c3. So he tries to play knight e2. So this, I think, is the start of problems for Christensen. I believe.
I mean, it seems like a very natural move, right?
Yes.
Typically, a bishop is worth maybe slightly more than a knight, and so to grab the bishop seems like a good idea. But he misses, sliding the rook to h8 and then perhaps bringing it down.
But could he may have considered actually playing this pawn up to maybe b5 with the advance here? I mean,
that was a possibility.
That was a good move.
I'm not sure, to be honest. What the computer analysis had showed was rook to h8. At
see,
this point was
oh yeah, it would make sense to seize the file, control the H file.
control the h file, and then
And then threaten to bring the rook and attack the queen
because it's covered by the bishop.
Oh yes, yeah, that actually looks very good. Bring the rook over to h8, threaten to come down to h3, attack the queen, force the queen to move, or have the knight block the attack on the queen.
But offhand, this seems like a reasonable move. I mean, I probably would have played this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does with this capture, which Christensen now does. He will end up with 2 bishops versus 2 knights.
Yeah.
And bishops are considered are better than.
But it depends on the circumstances, right? If in an open position, the bishops are better.
Right. But here's what happens. Christensen takes the bishop on e3 with the knight. Knight takes e3.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is now. Ivanov has to recapture, and he chooses the right way to capture. He decides to capture with the f pawn, which now gives further defense of that pawn on d4, letting the pawn now you defend the pawn. So maybe he can actually scoot over to the h file if possible. Yeah.
Right, and we can point out that right now this dark squared bishop is pretty useless.
It's biting on granite.
Yeah.
It's biting on a stone wall here.
Yeah.
The bishop on g7. All right. So here is where now Christian says, I'm going to grab the open file by playing the rook over to h8.
He's going to try to. Yeah.
Try to. Well, again. And now he does it. The threat.
So he is threatening to bring the rook down, attacking the queen.
Yes. So that's a threat. That is a threat by black to bring the rook to h3 and attack the queen.
So what Ivanov does is plays knight to f4 to cover the h3 square.
Okay.
So he can't do that.
He can't do that. So he played knight h4, knight f4.
Yep.
All right. So, and Christians realizes he doesn't want this bishop to be eliminated, which would saddle black with isolated double pawns.
Yep.
So he chooses, no, I can't allow that capture on e6. So he plays the bishop to f5. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So that's a good move for black here. All right. Now, how does Ivanov continue here? What does he do?
So he counterattacks. That goes to g3 counterattacking.
Yeah, he really I think he would love to eliminate the bishop, which actually would saddle black with double pawns on the f file.
Again, yeah.
And Christian doesn't want to allow that. Doesn't want to allow actually any capture.
Yeah, because this bishop is a good bishop.
It is.
It's doing good things. This one's bad right now.
Right, exactly.
It's not doing much.
So Christian has to save that bishop, has to retreat it.
Yep.
And he decides to retreat it to the only square he can go to. He's not going to go here because it would be taken off with the knight if it got to e6. The only move he has to save it is bishop d7. That was the only saving square for black here, was bishop d7. All right, it is now Ivanov's 24th move. How does he continue?
So he plays this knight back to e4.
Okay.
It's a nice square for it.
It is. And I can see actually where there's some good squares he can go to. He can try to sink into the and attack that bishop again, for one thing.
Right. And I suppose Christensen, potentially could have just played back here, right?
Yes.
To see if he wanted to draw.
Why not just go back to f5?
To see if he wants to.
And just repeat.
To repeat.
Yeah.
But
right.
Apparently Christensen was playing for the win here.
Right. Because otherwise he would have played bishop f5.
Right.
Yeah. And
then Ivanov would have had to decide, do I want to repeat?
And if a position is repeated 3 times,
right.
You can claim a draw. On a threefold repetition of the position, a draw could be claimed.
Yep.
So Christensen evidently wanted to win the game and chose not to repeat the position.
Yep. So
after actually the knight e4, he decides to play this queen back to c7. Queen c7, okay. All right, so, I don't know what his plan now is here with the queen on c7, but now how does actually Ivanov continue on move 25? How does he continue?
Yeah, again, that's kind of a questionable move.
I don't understand what the purpose of that move is. It doesn't make any sense.
Because like that bishop, this queen's also biting on granite, as it were.
Exactly, yeah, right.
And so Ivanov just sinks the knight in.
Right. All right.
So Yeah, now he's threatening to take off the good bishop.
Right. Now he could retreat the bishop, but he didn't do it. Now, there's a reason why he didn't play the bishop back. Why did he not play the bishop back? What was he fearful of? Was he fearful of this pawn being advanced to E6?
Probably.
That would be a nasty threat.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be nasty. Yes, right.
Because black couldn't take it, because if he did,
yes,
the knight would come here, forking the
queen and the bishop,
yeah.
And it would win the piece, right?
Yep.
If it would take it. So that had to be Christian had to realize if he retreats the bishop to E8, E6 would be a nasty move, and he didn't want to face that. So he chose in this position to play this. He played because this bishop now, as we pointed out,
right,
is actually hitting a stone wall here.
Right.
It's doing nothing against this wall. So he chooses to play the bishop to H6. That's what he did on his 25th move. Okay. So how does actually Ivanov continue after that move?
And here it probably would have worked out if Ivanov here
He could
had pushed.
He could have. That's a good move.
Yeah.
There seems to be nothing wrong with that move. Yeah.
No.
That was a very strong move. But he chooses instead. What does Ivanov do instead? Aha.
So he's now contesting the H file.
He's now pinning that bishop. Yeah. So of course that bishop.
The bishop could
go back and defend the rook. Yes, right. That could. But I like the move you suggested. E6 looks very good. So he played bishop H6 instead. So here is where Christian advances the pawn to G5, attacks the knight. Okay. All right. So now after G5, now what does Ivanov
this is a nice move. He ignores the attack.
He ignores the attack because now he plays.
And he basically counterattacks.
So now he counterattacks.
Yep.
Okay. So now he is threatening the bishop. What is it?
Things are starting to look grim for black, and pretty much the only
was the retreat.
He'd have to retreat.
The only move he had was the retreat. Right?
Yeah, and he's still probably going to lose, but
but instead, what he does not retreat that bishop.
No.
What he does instead, he actually takes the pawn on E6 with the F pawn.
Yeah.
Which now actually vacates that pawn on F7 was controlling that G6 square for one thing.
Right.
Okay.
Which is critical.
Very critical to defend that. So here is what allows Ivanov now to sink in.
So now that pawn's gone, knight G6 hitting this rook.
Right.
Hitting this pawn, threatening check.
Right. Exactly. All right. So so here is where after knight G6, Christian advances and attacks the queen with G4. That is, that queen cannot take that. That would be a big blunder. If the queen took the pawn on G4, in fact that would lose the game. Let's show it.
So
if that would be a blunder because that would allow now bishop takes E3 check, followed by the winning the rook. I mean, this would be over. Would it not? Yes.
Right.
This cannot be allowed.
Because the only thing the king could do here is move
yes,
here.
Right.
He'd come down, take the rook with check.
With check. You would take the rook with check.
That would be horrible.
That would be horrible. So that is why that pawn, okay, put this back here.
The pawn,
okay.
I think right here.
All right, where's this pawn? Okay, put the pawn here. All right, so
I think that's right.
This is the right move. So he advances the pawn, attacks the queen. The queen definitely cannot take that move, okay? So,
but
what happened here now? Okay.
Yes, so Ivanov ignores it, captures the bishop on H6.
Right, okay. Rook takes H6, yeah. And what Christensen played was rook takes. He did not, now why did he not take the queen? Let's show our viewers.
Okay.
What if he actually said, okay, I'm going to win the queen.
Yep.
I'm queen.
Yep.
Why is that a mistake? That's a mistake because Ivanov would have played rook takes here, check.
Yeah.
And how do we continue here? I mean, what is the move here?
It's probably going to be mate shortly, right? Because you'd have to put the queen in the way.
The queen has to block, right?
Right.
Right here. Okay.
And then
No, but actually it should be enough
for
to,
one thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Check.
Yes, right. He could check here. Yeah. Check
Yeah.
here. Check here. Let's hope we get this position back. And then he would be forced to move. Actually, he couldn't move here because he'd lose
the queen
the queen.
completely.
Yeah. So you had to move up like this. Yep.
But even if he didn't, yeah, the rook would take the queen.
Right.
King would take there, and at the very least,
Yeah.
black would be up a piece.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Okay. Well, anyways, let's get back. Let's see if we can get this back here. What was the position?
Can they put the position up on the screen and make sure we get it right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's see the position on the screen so we can get back to here. So let's put the bishop pawn here.
Oh, there they go.
The rook is here.
So the knight's here.
The rook's over here.
The rook is over here.
Queen is here.
Let's see, pawn.
And
Yeah.
okay, this is the position.
I think we've got it. Yes,
Right.
thank you.
I'll
Thank
say-
you, guys.
So G4. All right, so it is okay. So rook takes H6 was played.
Yeah.
And Christensen played rook takes E recaptured this way.
Right.
Rook takes H6. We're on move 30.
But
yeah.
by doing that, now it allows the queen to come in.
The queen comes in with check. All right,
Queen
queen.
to F8 check.
Okay. Now, what Christensen decides to do, instead of blocking with the queen, he actually
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing he can.
no. He has
I mean, if he had blocked with the queen,
Right.
then
yes,
it drops the rook.
he
I mean,
loses the rook. Right. Exactly.
So,
he chooses to block with the bishop. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Bishop bishop E8. Right.
Yeah,
And
so
now Ivanov
simply takes it.
All right. Let's say queen takes. Let's see it's at our board here. Queen takes E8 check.
Yep.
Now he's forced. Now actually black is forced now to block the check.
Yep.
The only move he has is Queen D8. That's the only move he had. Queen D8. All right. All right. So now how does actually Ivanov continue on move 32?
It's going to be checkmate. So knight
So a
takes
check.
E7.
All right.
Yeah.
He can't take with the queen because he's
can't take,
pinned.
It's pinned.
And the only move he has, he can't move to D8 because he would lose.
Right.
He'd be checkmate.
Yep.
The only move he has to still defend the queen
Yep.
is bring the king up to C7. So let's see if King C7 is on our board here. All right, King C7 is played. All right, it is now Ivanov's actually key. It's a key move. Move 33.
King to
What
C7.
does Ivanov play now?
There we go. There's King C7.
The King C7 is now played on our screen here. So it is now move 33 for Ivanov. What does he play?
I mean, I'd consider this to be a nice move because I think most players at this point would be looking to always keep checks coming, right?
Right.
Where's the check? But the best move is not a check here. It's Queen to F7.
Right. Yeah.
And now
Right.
you're threatening to move this knight out of the way.
With a discovered check. Yes. Right.
Discovered checkmate. Yeah.
Okay. So after Queen F7, so Christians cannot allow this discovered check, a devastating check. So he starts running.
Yep.
Starts running and trying maybe to hide.
Yep.
So he plays King B6. So the king has played the B6. Now, before we play Ivanov's next move, let's get a shot of the board. Darren actually will get a shot of our board, if we show that, or actually even show the diagram. It also will show. Okay, here's the position that we see, and our viewers are seeing the same position. They can also see the diagram. Actually, if we go and show the diagram of this position after move 33, if we can show that, maybe it's easy. Yes, right.
Yep.
It's better, easier to see it this way. Now let's actually give our viewers maybe a few seconds to look at this position and see what they can see as a move that Ivanov played that forced Christensen's immediate resignation.
Yep.
What move did Alexander Ivanov play now that forced Larry Christensen to resign the game?
All right. So time's up.
Time is up.
Time is up.
What was the move that Alexander Ivanov played to win the game?
Knight D5 check.
Check. And now why? This is not a discovery. Oh, it's a check with the knight.
Check with the knight.
Wait a minute. He's offering the knight. This is
right.
Okay.
So we can probably just show it.
Let's show. Okay. So this is the game. This game ended in this position.
Yeah.
Larry Christensen resigned. Why did he resign? Why didn't he just take the knight with the pawn, with the E pawn?
You could take with the E pawn,
Either pawn.
the C pawn, the queen.
Even the queen.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how he takes that knight with a pawn or a queen. If he takes with the pawn, let's take with the pawn.
Yep.
One example.
Yep.
How does Alexander Ivanov end this game? How does he continue?
Yes, now Ivanov goes, queen takes b7 check.
Okay, and I only see one
There's
move
only one
from black
move.
here.
Yep.
The only move he has here on our board, if we show our board,
Yep.
is king a5 is the only move he has. Okay, and how does Ivanov continue to end the game? There's actually different ways. He can
Right,
do it with a pawn. Right.
right.
How many different ways out of the mate this game? To end the game with mate.
Well, this would be one.
That's one way.
That would be checkmate.
Okay, any other way?
This would be checkmate.
Okay, any other way? There's another third way too.
Third way, I guess, just taking here, is that?
Yeah, or no.
No, because he'd have that.
No, right.
So that doesn't quite work. So
Okay.
we have at least two ways.
Well, how about actually here?
Yeah, to here.
A third way.
Three ways.
So
three.
there were three ways that he could have ended the game.
Yep.
And that's why Larry Christensen resigned
Resigned,
after
yep.
knight d5.
Yep.
The sacrifice, which could not be accepted because it was over. The game
Yep.
was over, and we saw this game. This was a 34 move game.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is quite the game. Quite an exciting
Yep.
game. And actually, if one were to go and look up the chess games of Alexander Ivanov, this is indicated as one of the most notable games. There's a whole section of all thousands of Alexander Ivanov games, but there's a section on notable games.
Okay.
And this is one of the most notable games that Alexander Ivanov played in his career.
So was this a book from a book on Ivanov's games?
No, this is not from a book on. No, this is a book actually. Grandmaster games are compiled and are made available on this website, chess.com, which is also very. What can you tell our viewers about chess.com? It's one of the.
It's the
leading
biggest
online chess site, isn't it not?
Yeah, they've broken 100 million members,
100 million
which
people
is mind-boggling.
They're members.
Yeah, over 100 million.
Now, there are more people playing chess online on chess.com.
Yeah.
What is the other site? There's another site.
Lee Chess is one that I like a lot, and that one's free.
That's a free site. Lee
site,
Chess,
yeah.
li.chess.
lichess.com.
Yep. So there are two sites. The big one that has over 100 million, say 100 million members
Yeah.
who are playing as we speak now.
Yeah.
There's millions of chess players are playing
Right
on
now,
chess.com.
yes.
Yeah.
But
So,
chess.com, you have to. Well, I guess you can register for free, but you don't get all the features.
okay, so there are features on
And the higher level of membership, the more features you get. Whereas Lee Chess is basically free to everyone.
okay.
But those are the two biggest.
Well, chess.com, again, is the number one in the world.
Oh, easily, yeah.
And they actually have on top players of the world, Grandmasters, International Masters, even FIDE Masters.
Yeah.
They actually, you can get the games.
So is that where you found it? Was on
I
chess.com?
found it, and it was listed on the notable games.
Okay.
There was maybe there was at least a dozen, maybe 15 of games in his career,
Mm-hmm.
and this game that we presented to our Chess Chat viewers was one of those notable games.
Yeah.
But again, this is one of Ivanov's early games in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
1 year after he came to the United States, he came in 1988. He did this the year after in Chicago. So this was actually cited as a very notable game by him. A very impressive win against Larry Christensen. Okay.
Now, I'll ask you this question. I don't know if you know the answer.
Yes.
But do you know, like, what level Ivanov was when he was back in? I guess it was still the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Did he ever win
Well, there was one tournament in Moscow that he tied for first with Anatoly Karpov.
Really?
World
Wow.
Yes.
World champion.
This was a massive Swiss tournament that he played in where he tied with Karpov, and I forget who the third player was.
Wow.
So that was impressive. Now Ivanov, he got, you know when he actually became a Grandmaster?
No.
Again, he was born in 1956, May 1st, 1956. He didn't become a Grandmaster until the year 1980. Ivanov became a Grandmaster in 1991.
Really?
He became a international master the year that he won his first Massachusetts Open in 1988. The World Chess Federation awarded him the IM title in 1988. So he was what, the 20, let's see, it was actually 32 in 1988? Yeah. So in 1991, he was what, 35? He was 35 years old when he was awarded the Grandmaster title. Now, Larry Christensen, who he played in this game, do you know actually when Larry Christensen became a Grandmaster?
No.
He became it at the age of 21. He did this actually, he was born the same year. They both, Larry Christensen and Ivanov were born the same year, 2 months apart.
Really?
In fact, Ivanov was born May 1st, 1956. Christensen is going to be celebrating his 68th birthday later this month, June 27th. So there's a 2-month gap. But he got his Grandmaster title in 1977. He was 21 years old. So you see a big difference, actually, when they both got their Grandmaster title. The Larry did it, actually.
Nowadays, kids are doing it in their teens.
They're doing it, yes, right, in their teens. So it's amazing how these young players are getting the Grandmaster title. So, again, Ivanov. Now, let me get, with the time remaining, I want to point out, can I just cite the years that Ivanov won the Mass Open? Okay. I already cited 1988. That was the first time.
88, you said.
88, 89, 90. That was 3 years in a row he won the state championship. Then there was a 12-year gap. He came back and won the state championship, the Mass Open, in 2002. In 2003, he was co-champion with Bill Pascal.
Okay.
Who's been living in Hungary. He's been living in Budapest, Hungary, for many years. But he tied with Bill Pascal, an international master, in 2003. In 2004, Ivanov won it clear, all by himself. 2005, he was co-champion again, but this time with international master Igor Foigl. Who's a well-known chess teacher, chess coach in Massachusetts. In 2006, Ivanov won it clear again. 2009, clear. In 2010, he won it again. He was co-champion with Foigl again in 2010. And then he won it 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. Wow. Ivanov won that streak of those years. He didn't win it in 2014, but in 2015, he won it. Then we have this 9-year gap between 2015 and 2024 that he won it for the 15th time. So that's quite a record. And again, can he tie Curto's record of 17 wins? He needs only 2 more to do it, but it's going to be more difficult at the age of 68. And again, he's the oldest player ever to win the state championship. He did it in this year.
And I would say it's especially impressive in this age of the kids who are rising up so fast.
It's going to be more and more difficult for him now for next year when he plays to win it. But he can do. Who knows?
Absolutely.
He's capable of doing great things
this year.
So and I just want to point out, actually, among the players who I pointed out that the Rob King, who played in the Mass Open.
Oh, right.
We have 3 members of the Wachusett Chess Club who are now members of the Massachusetts Chess Association Board of Directors. They are Rob King, who's the president. We have Matt Phelps, who lives in Groton, who's the vice president. And we have Mike Urbonis, who is actually on the board of directors. So we congratulate 3 Wachusett Chess Club members who are now on the MACA board of directors. And we hope our Chess Chat viewer fans enjoyed the game that Dave and I presented to you. We hope to present you a good program next time on the next episode, the 193rd episode of Chess Chat.